I want to start today with the Haitian immigration crisis. This is potentially one of the first major Joe Biden tests that is sort of going aimlessly and contributing to Joe Biden's declining approval rating. We talked about Joe Biden needs a big accomplishment to stem the decline in his approval rating. The situation with Haitian immigrants does not seem to be helping. So we're going to go through it. And I think, there's this unfortunate thing where every time I say, hey, guys, is Biden dropping the ball here? People angrily email me and they say, David, have you become some kind of right wing Trumpist or whatever? Presidents mishandle things, and it doesn't mean that I would prefer Donald Trump to be president of the United States. Just sometimes presidents don't immediately or at all handle situations correctly. And I think this is one of those situations where, due to its complexity and due to conflicting messaging from the current administration, it is hurting Joe Biden. And we can talk about to what degree that's fair. So let's start with some of the latest news here. Reuters reporting angry scenes at Haiti airport add to Biden pressure over expulsions. And we'll talk about what that means in a second. Angry scenes broke out at Haiti's main airport on Tuesday among migrants sent home from a squalid Texas border camp as U.S. President Joe Biden faced mounting pressure to stop an expulsions policy the UN refugee chief said may be illegal. Nearly 10,000 migrants, mainly Haitian, remain in worsening conditions in the impromptu camp that sprung up under a bridge spanning the, as it's called in the U.S., the Rio Grande, from the Texas town Del Rio to Mexico's Ciudad Acuña. In recent days, U.S. authorities have removed at least 4,000 people from the site for processing and detention centers. Some 523 Haitians have been deported to their homeland on 4 flights, with repatriation set to continue on a regular basis, according to DHS. Returnees reacted angrily as they stepped off flights at Port-au-Prince Airport after spending thousands of dollars on arduous voyages from the troubled Caribbean nation via South America, hoping for a better life in the United States. On Tuesday, they found themselves back where they started. A group of men in white T-shirts rushed back toward the plane after they disembarked, with one man attempting to get back on board, witnesses said. The migrants broke into a restricted area of the airport as they attempted to recover passports and personal belongings. Ground staff closed the door of the plane before the man could scale the steps back in. Tempers ran high, exacerbated by the news the Haitian government had accepted the deportations. So there's an okay article in Politico outlining the potentially problematic future of this for Joe Biden. Now, before we look at the article, I think it's important to mention part of the problem here is that this is a very complicated situation, and you simultaneously have Jen Psaki saying the treatment of the migrants is unacceptable, and you have deportations, but they're saying, well, the people being deported are basically just the men, but the women and children are staying, and conservatives are angry either way. So I'm not pretending that there is objectively a correct solution here that would absolve Joe Biden of any drag on his approval. But we can still acknowledge that this is causing a problem for Joe Biden. The Politico article says Biden slips into political quicksand amid Haitian migrant buildup. The article is by Natasha Karecki and Laura Barron Lopez. And the article says the mass of thousands of Haitians at the U.S. southern border has put the Biden administration in the exact place it's tried to avoid, knee deep in immigration politics. I think that's completely accurate. In the past 24 hours, the White House has responded to images and videos of aggressive tactics used by Border Patrol to corral migrants by supporting an internal investigation into the matter. What it hasn't done yet is figure out a solution to the crowding and sanitary issues arising in what's become a makeshift encampment, or stop its policy of deporting migrants upon arrival. That's left the president and his team with few supporters and allies. And we can talk about what should be done while also recognizing that in terms of Biden taking heat, there's almost really nothing he could do, right? You criticize the treatment of the migrants by Border Patrol, and the right says, oh, look, you're on the side of the illegals rather than of law enforcement. And then you do deportations, and the left says, well, but if we're acknowledging that these people aren't being treated correctly, then you just send them out back to the situation that is a disaster in their country. Now that's also bad and that's inhumane. And you don't improve the situation at the encampment, and that's inhumane. But if you do improve it, then the right says you're coddling criminals, as they like to say. So I get that no matter what, there would be criticism, and yet we can still talk about what is the correct path forward, which we will do. The article in Politico goes on to say, a coalition of more than 38 civil rights and immigrant advocacy leaders sent the White House a letter calling on Biden to stop expulsions, some of whom arrived to the border community after fleeing violence and natural disaster in their home country. The letter marks a final straw, said Nana Gyamfi, executive director of the Black Alliance for Just Immigration, described the moment as an inflection point for Biden's commitment to a humane immigration policy. Members of the president's own party, including Chuck Schumer, echoed the call to end expulsions. Increasingly, they did so while directing their ire at the White House for its handling of the situation. 12 House Dems will hold a press conference calling on Biden to halt deportations. So what is it that should be done here? It's not totally clear, but it's causing a problem for Joe Biden, whose approval rating has now hit a new low of 43% as of yesterday. Kamala Harris down to 49%. This is the lowest approval rating that Joe Biden has had, and this does not yet fully account for what's going on at the border with the Haitian migrants. This poll ended on September 17th, and it has Joe Biden down to a presidency low of 43%. Now, it is typical that presidents see approval decline throughout their presidency, as we've talked about before. Many people just, as soon as the president does one thing they don't like, they say, I no longer approve. And it's often difficult to change that. We've seen that with many presidents. At the same time, there is a question here about whether Joe Biden drops into the 30s. And my expectation, my prediction was, as we saw the approval rating start to go down around the Afghanistan situation, which I agree with leaving Afghanistan as just as a reminder, if you've not seen those segments, my thought was it'll get down into the low 40s before it might turn around and start going up. I don't think the situation in Del Rio is going to help. So what should happen? You know, it seems as though a sort of balanced approach here would be provide better conditions and sanitation, figure out a way to do it. The right will say you're being soft, but remember, the right's been saying that since January 22nd. Before Joe Biden changed anything about what was being done at the border, the right was already saying Joe Biden is being soft. So either way they're going to say that, materially improve the sanitation situation at the border, must do. There's food shortages, etc. Do some kind of a temporary pause on the expulsions. Now, the right will say these people are here illegally, so of course you're going to deport them. And at a certain point, this is going to have to be adjudicated in a more serious way. But the problem is, if you don't put a pause here, you don't even allow the opportunity to say, is there a valid case for asylum here? Now, many of us would say, obviously there is. Look at the situation in Haiti. It's a legal question. But if you just immediately do the expulsions, you don't even allow the opportunity to do that. You're not going to please the right. That's the reality. But at this point, nobody's happy with how this is being handled. And I think the major criticism is it seems aimless, where it's not really clear what is even the goal down there. And so we will see if I think by Monday, there has to be some clear messaging, and we may even get it today from Jen Psaki, who's going to be, by the time you listen or watch today, the press briefing will likely already have been held. One of our sponsors is Magic Spoon breakfast cereal, sweet and tasty like the cereals I loved as a kid, but without the sugar or the carbs. Every serving of Magic Spoon has 0 grams of sugar, only 4 net carbs, 140 calories, and packed with 13 grams of protein. Perfect if you're doing keto, perfect if you're doing low carb. Great if you're just trying to reduce your excess sugar intake, and because it's packed with protein, it's great before or after a workout. Magic Spoon flavors include cocoa, fruity, frosted, peanut butter, blueberry, and cinnamon. They're bringing back cookies and cream. They're bringing back maple waffle. You can build your own variety box and try them all. Magic Spoon is so confident in the product, if you don't love it as much as I do, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Go to magicspoon.com/Pacman. The link is underneath this video, and you'll get $5 off when you use the promo code Pacman at checkout.